It all started because my dog barked. And because of that, my neighbor thought he could threaten me. But today, he can't even come within 100 meters of me. I never thought my dog's simple bark would turn into a nightmare. But that's how it all started. And how my neighbor revealed who he really was. It was early fall, late afternoon. The wind was cool, and I took my dog Thor downstairs so he could pee in the building's small garden. Thor was always calm, but he would bark when he saw another dog or a stranger passing by. Nothing out of the ordinary. That day, he let out 2 or 3 louder barks because a car stopped right next to the gate. That's when the ground floor door burst open, and Mr. Ernesto, my neighbor from 103, came out. A tall man with gray hair, always with a scowl. He walked toward me, finger raised, and started yelling, "Can't you control that dog? That dog barks all day long. He's disturbing the neighborhood." I tried to remain calm, telling him that Thor only barked occasionally, that it was normal, that I always picked up litter, that I respected the schedule. But he didn't even let me finish. He came closer, almost touching his face to mine. "I'm warning you. If that dog keeps waking me up, there'll be retribution. And it won't just be with him, no. It'll be with you too." I felt my heart race. My knees trembled. No one had ever threatened me like that. Poor Thor tucked his ears back and hid behind my leg. I looked around. 2 neighbors watched from afar, unsure whether to interfere. A heavy silence hung over the garden. And Mr. Ernesto continued to pour venom. "I'm going to make you and that dog disappear from here. You'll see if I can't do it." After that, he turned and walked back into the building, slamming the gate so hard the glass nearly shattered. I stood there, clutching Thor's leash, wanting to cry and scream at the same time. That night, I could barely sleep. I kept remembering his look, full of hate, and I thought, this won't stop here. He'll try something worse, and I need to be prepared. I thought that argument would be the end of it, but it was just beginning. What came next was pure psychological terror. After that fight in the garden, Mr. Ernesto seemed to have made my life his personal mission. At first, it was all looks. Every time I went out with Thor, he'd appear out of nowhere, cross his arms, and stare at me, as if I were a criminal. A neighbor even commented to me in the elevator, "Wow, he's always asking if your dog doesn't bite. He's spreading the word that you don't pay your condo fees properly." I was shocked. I've never been late, and Thor has never bitten anyone. But it seemed he wanted to isolate me from the neighborhood, to turn people against me. Soon after, the knocking on my door started. Sometimes at night, sometimes in the early hours of the morning. I'd open it and find no one there. When I complained, he'd say he was just passing by, and tell me to be careful. One day, I went down to walk Thor and found a note stuck to my mailbox. "If that dog barks one more time, I'll deal with him." My hands went cold reading it. I began to fear leaving Thor alone at home. I imagined Mr. Ernesto poisoning him, or worse. Even in the building's WhatsApp group, Mr. Ernesto began to taunt me, saying my dog was an aggressive animal, and that I was a danger to the neighborhood. Some neighbors began to grow cold toward me. Others sent me private messages telling me to be careful. I felt trapped. I avoided going out when he was around. I stopped using the elevator and carried Thor up the stairs, just to avoid running into him. But the more fear he tried to instill in me, the more the certainty grew within me. I had to do something. Because, at the rate he was going, he wouldn't stop until he destroyed me. That's when I decided to start gathering evidence. Because if Ernesto wanted war, I was going to show him that no one threatens me, or Thor, without paying the price. I was afraid. But there came a time when fear turned to anger. And that day, I swore to myself that Ernesto would never intimidate me again. I started gathering evidence. I saved all the notes, took photos of the WhatsApp messages, and recorded audio of the hallway conversations. Even neighbors, previously silent, began telling me things they'd seen. Ernesto saying he was going to get rid of my dog, or spreading lies about me. But it was one Friday night that everything came to a head. I was coming home from work, tired, with Thor on my leash. When I turned the corner on the ground floor, there he was, standing there waiting for me, arms crossed, expression grim. Tell your dog not to bark in here anymore, or you too will be left in the lurch. I tried to move forward, but he blocked the way. Thor started growling, sensing the mood. And then, out of nowhere, Mr. Ernesto pushed me. It wasn't a hard push, but it was enough to make my back hit the wall. Thor barked loudly, desperately. Just then, two neighbors opened the elevator door and saw everything. Mr. Ernesto, realizing there were witnesses, walked quickly out, still shouting, "I warned you! I'll destroy you and that disgusting dog!" My hands were shaking so badly I could barely unlock my apartment door. I sat on the floor, hugging Thor, crying with rage and fear. The next day, I went straight to the police station. I showed them everything: the messages, the notes, the recordings. The witnesses also gave their statements. The police chief looked at me and said, "That's a threat, that's assault. You did the right thing by reporting it." At that moment, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. I was no longer alone. And that was when Mr. Ernesto's fate began to change. Because, after that report, he would never have the peaceful life he thought he would. The man who threatened me in the hallway could now barely look in my direction. The neighborhood bully had to bow his head, because justice had finally knocked on his door. A few days after the report, Mr. Ernesto received a summons. And it wasn't just for the threat, it was also for insult, harassment, and attempted assault. The evidence I gathered was solid. The witnesses confirmed everything. He tried to defend himself, of course. He said I was exaggerating, that I was making a fuss over a noisy dog. But no one believed him anymore. The image of a respected building manager, because yes, he was once a building manager, silently crumbled. At the hearing, the judge was blunt. He imposed a restraining order. Mr. Ernesto was prohibited from coming within 100 meters of me or my apartment. He was also officially warned and had to pay a fine for harassment and threats. Word spread quickly through the building. Some neighbors approached me to apologize for initially remaining neutral. Others said they were also afraid of him but never had the courage to react. Mr. Ernesto, who used to walk around with his chest puffed out, now barely left the house. He avoided elevators, walked with his head down, and stopped attending meetings. He was replaced as building manager and completely lost face in the condominium. And Thor? He's still barking, playing, and roaming freely. Only now, without fear. And so am I. Because the biggest lesson this story taught me was simple. When someone crosses the line, you have to react. And when you're right, no matter how long it takes, karma comes. If you think this story was harsh, just wait until you hear the next one. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and activate the bell. Because here, the neighborhood never forgets, and karma never fails.